Hello, this is Emma Curver doing my response video for our Module 6 discussion, Interpersonal and Intrapersonal Business Communication. The first question that I chose was question 6, reflecting on the chapter Strategies for Feedback. How do you approach giving or receiving feedback in your professional life? To cite the text's key points and to delivering constructive feedback and explaining a time when I applied that. So the text states on page 510 that feedback allows conversational partners to clarify, restate, or discuss the points of conversation to arrive at a sense of mutual understanding. When I give or receive feedback, I try to keep that in mind, that it is a discussion and it is for a mutual benefit, whether it feels like that or not. It's really easy to feel defensive when receiving feedback, even if it's not necessarily critical. It can be easy to fall into this thought of like, oh, they're attacking me and not they're trying to help me grow. And then in the same vein, giving feedback, it can be hard not to come across as critical, even if you have the best of intentions. A time in my professional life when I needed to apply feedback strategies was during my mid-year reviews. They are a mid-year check-in for how things have been going so far this year, and then where do we need to necessarily improve, or what do we need to keep doing to continue to succeed through the rest of the year before our end-of-year reviews in December, which are the big ones for promotions, raises, things like that. We have to write out a big explanation in a bunch of different categories, and then we rank ourselves as does not meet, meets, or exceeds in the different categories. So for myself, in my mid-year review, I put myself as exceeds, because I was hitting 100% or more to goal in each metric, sometimes between 200 and 500% to goal, depending on the month and quarter, and that was every month, and then for each quarter to date, and they go off of quarters. When I met with my manager for the mid-year review, he generally agreed with me about most of what I said, but he said that he was only able to rank me as a meets exceeds, not exceeds, because while I was overperforming, there were other people in our market at other locations who were overperforming at a higher rate than I was. If I was a few 100%, they were 1,000% or something like that. And so they can only give exceeds to a select amount of people. So keeping in mind that feedback is a discussion to come to a mutual understanding, I brought up a couple different points with him about the demographic and wealth disparities between the area that we work in and the area that some of these other people in our market work in, as well as volume and traffic differences, and then a few other reasons as to why my behavior and performance is on par with these other associates, even though numerically there may be some differences. And we came to a general understanding of each other's point of views, and I feel pretty confident walking into my end of year review in December. I do appreciate my boss's approach to feedback in most instances. He's a big proponent of what he calls coaching upward, where he wants us as the people that are closest to the work to be able to be comfortable giving him feedback and ideas, and not necessarily criticism, but, bringing problems and solutions, as well as peer mentoring, which is us kind of supporting each other as a team and succeeding not just as individuals, but as a group. And then the next question that I did was question 5, how the text outlines how emotional intelligence affects professional communication. How has your ability to manage emotions, your own or someone else's, impacted your work interactions? Cite the text and share a relevant professional experience. So the book says in the Managing Your Emotions section on page 518 to never speak or make a decision in anger. When I read this section, I immediately had a professional interaction that sprung to mind for me. I have a coworker who very much wants to be promoted into a very coveted and competitive position in our market that very rarely has openings. That's one of the things that I like about my company, is that they have a very strong culture of internal promotions, but also nobody ever leaves. And so it can be very time consuming to get promotions because you have to wait for other people to move up so you can. But anyway, in this situation, he has applied every time there's been an opening in this position, which is pretty seldom, but he's never received that position. Every time he applies and finds out that he did not get the job, he'll call out of work, sometimes for multiple days afterwards. And he's made some very disparaging comments publicly about the people who have received the position, and insinuated that the reason they got the position is for diversity and other reasons as opposed to their merit. And he faced some light disciplinary action for that, but it was something that ultimately kind of blew over. But the last time that he did not get the position, we had a company networking event a couple days later. And at that event, there was an open bar. And he made the decision to go behind the bar, overconsume, go behind the bar, try to serve himself, which is not legal, and upset the staff at the establishment hosting us. And he made some extremely offensive remarks about the female hiring manager for the position in front of not only her, but some of her bosses and other people that are very important in our market who we don't typically see other than at those events. And I do believe that if he had not gone on to protected medical leave unexpectedly very shortly after that, he probably would be facing termination. And it's okay to be upset or frustrated about work-related stuff, but voicing that publicly in an appropriate way is never okay. You never want to be the coworker who people don't mind it when you're gone. And unfortunately, since he's been gone, a lot of us have found that it's easier to work without him present. And if he was capable of keeping his more negative thoughts and emotions to himself or exhibiting those in a healthier way, he might not be viewed that way, or he might not be facing some of the disciplinary stuff that he has in the past. And then question 4, according to the chapter, interpersonal relationships in the workplace differ from personal ones. How does the text explain the difference, and can you provide an example of how you've navigated work and professional relationships? So page 505 through roughly 507 says that interpersonal relationships are based on things like prior history, familiarity, and trust. In reference to business and interpersonal relationships, we want to know our place within the organization, accurately predict those within our proximity, and create a sense of safety. With a personal relationship, we might be focused more on developing romantic, familial, or friendly ties with someone for mutual enjoyment and support. In a business setting, we may be focused on building a strong professional trust and familiarity for mutual benefit and support in the workplace or in the accomplishment of shared goals. So a scenario that we could compare that I've been a part of, my sister recently got engaged, and she's getting married in September, and most likely I'll be playing a larger role in her wedding and in her wedding planning. Over the summer, a coworker of mine got married and invited several people from work, including myself, to her wedding. While it was a beautiful day, and I was very happy to have been invited and get to participate, how I participate and behave during a coworker's wedding is going to be very different than how I'm going to participate and behave during my sister's wedding. One relationship is a friendly but ultimately professional one, and one is a close familial relationship. And while I have, interpersonal relationships with both of these people that I see frequently, they show up in very different ways. And that is my response.